Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's edition of the Draft Countdown Podcast. I'm your co-host, Brian Bosarge, as always, with my co-host, Shane P. Hallam. Shane, 14 days, 22 hours, 59 minutes, and 43 seconds away from the 2022 NFL Draft.
Yeah, we're here, man. 2 weeks out, 2 weeks from tomorrow. So I'm excited. Kind of, I have my 7-rounder coming out Monday, a second to last one. So it's like trying to figure out these possibilities and starting to kind of think ahead to, okay, I like this pick. I'm going to want to keep this at the end. It's, but yeah, we're getting into it now.
Shane, I did a 7-rounder this past Monday, and I don't know how you do this.
You enjoyed it thoroughly, I'm sure.
That was terrible and awful and excruciating. I don't know how you do this every other week. Hats off to you, Shane. We're also in crawfish season, by the way. I had to wear my shirt. We're in peak crawfish season. Waiting on the phone call.
I didn't know there was a crawfish season. So
it is a thing, sir.
All right.
It is a thing. Not in Pennsylvania.
No,
but on the Gulf Coast, it is a thing.
It's supposed to snow. It's supposed to snow here on Monday, so we're.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I'm running my AC right now. 2 weeks away from the 2022 NFL Draft, Shane, and we are in lying season. Is that what we're in right now? The smoke screens are out ablaze, and we're going to try to get into a little bit of that. Yeah. But we had a pretty important pro day day before yesterday. Tyler Linderbaum, we weren't expecting to get any testing from him, the center from Iowa, and we did, and it went very well.
It did go well. There was a lot of questions, like you said, if he would work out, and then if he did, like, is it going to be that good? Because he's not the biggest. We know the arm size isn't there for a lot of the power schemes. And when people ask, did he fall or whatever, why that happened, that was kind of the reason. But I don't know, do you have the numbers put up in front of you? I mean, it was good.
I don't have the entire profile, but I can give you the 714 3-cone, fastest ever for a center.
Yeah, that's pretty good start.
Ever. 4.9840 as well. His RAS came out unofficially at 9.57, which probably puts him at least second or third in this class, in this center class. So Tyler Linderbaum, I mocked him 31 to the Bengals, maybe just hoping, I guess, that could happen. Mel Kiper's mock came out today, had him going 31 to the Jets in a trade up with the Bengals. So what would you estimate right now today, 2 weeks before the draft, the ceiling for Tyler Linderbaum's draft status, and where is his floor?
I think especially with centers, it is really tough to gauge that. I don't know about you, but I always have trouble mocking where the center position is going to go. Teams generally don't bring him in for workouts. There's a lot of teams that don't value the position highly. He obviously could play guard. So, I think the ceiling's high. Like if you told me he went, 12, 13, something like that, I think it could happen. I think the floor, I probably would say he's going to go in the first round. I mean, I would say, maybe 27 to Tampa or 31 to the Bengals would probably be the floor. I still think that range is there. It's a very wide range.
Yeah. I mean, what's the high? I mean, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. The highest I can remember a center goal was one of the Pounceys at like 15.
Yeah, I think that's the closest in recent memory.
Yeah, like in the last 10, 12 years at least.
Yeah, like if you're actually looking at that. I mean, we had Marquise Pouncey went 18 to the Steelers. So I think that was probably
Ryan
the highest.
Kelly went 18 to the Colts.
Okay.
So that seems about as high. So Linderbaum, could go higher than that or does not. I guess we'll see. But yeah, I mean, Another important note from that pro day is that he weighed in over 300 pounds. And I know that was another question that people had because he was listed at 289, 290. And I think he weighed 290 at the combine. And
296, yeah.
296. But he comes in over 300 here. So that's good as well to show that, I guess people had that question and he answered it. So, hey, we got a little
Montreal
French Canadian love tonight here on the podcast. Appreciate that. Another pro day that hasn't happened yet and should have happened by now, but it's Drake London Day on Friday out in Southern California. He's going to have his own pro day. I guess, or there may be a couple other Southern Cal players working out too. I'm not sure, haven't heard, but Drake London's the only one of importance, I would imagine. What are your expectations if it even happens? Like I said, I feel like this is the second time we've heard about this. But if he does indeed work out, what are your expectations for Drake London on Friday?
I don't think it's extreme. Like, if it happens, I don't think he's going to come in here and we're going to, be sitting here next week and be like, wow, that Drake London, pro day really great. And I can't believe that he ran a 4.4 or whatever. Like, he's still a really big dude who is trying to run this 40 time and do what he can to work out. So I don't know. For me, I think if he can get 4.55, I think I predicted 4.52 ultimately. I think that's really good for a guy of his size. I think what I would like to see more is just in the green for his RAS for the explosive drills and the agility drills. I think if he can do those well at his size, I mean, that if the 3 cone's good and the vertical's good, then I'm in that he could be a top 10 pick. But I think if the workout's poor, I think we're talking back end of the first. I think this is an important day for him.
So is there anything he can do that would drop him out of the first? Like if it's just, I'm not talking quite to the level of
David Bell
or Emeka Amizi type levels of poor testing in this cycle, but is there a chance he drops into the second round with a poor workout?
I think it'd have to be really bad, and even if it is bad, like you said, maybe not on that level, but if it's like, oh, you ran a 4.65 or, it's not great. Like, I still think it comes down to the medical of if he's a first round pick, then it's, well, the ankle, we're still not sure it's going to get fully healed in time for the season. Okay, we'll pass. I think it's possible. I would say the chances are slim that he falls out of the first round with the production that he's had, but I never 0%. Yeah, that's right.
Never 0%. Shane, I want to talk about your team a little bit. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they're seeing all the quarterbacks. They're not hiding it. They haven't hit it since the Senior Bowl. Haven't hit it. They didn't hide it at the Combine. They're not hiding it at the pro days. They're not hiding it in their top 30 visits. And I'm using this to transition to that next part about it. But just break it down. I mean, they've literally had them all in there, from Willis to Howe, Strong. They're touching on everybody. First rounders to fifth rounders. They're talking to them all, Shane.
They're going to take a quarterback. like the Steelers don't smoke screen much. They generally draft, I would say, 60 to 70% of their draft are guys they bring in for visits, depending on how they move around. Like, the last time that I remember there actually being a smoke screen, I think, was 2007. Was Mike Tomlin's first year. I mean, that's how long it's been. Like, there have been times where they've had to take a guy, Terrell Edmonds, in 2018 because their player was taken. But most of the time, like, we knew they were taking Najee Harris. Knew they loved Devin Bush. We're going to move up for him. Knew they were going to take TJ Watt if he was there. Knew they were going to take Bud Dupree if he was there. Like, they you know what they're going to do. They're going to take a quarterback at 20. They're probably not going to trade up for one, as much as people want to throw that out there for Willis or for Pickett. They're going to sit at 20 and see what happens. Maybe there's a chance they can move up, but I think it's most likely they're going to sit there and take the best quarterback available. Maybe it's Malik Willis. Maybe it's Kenny Pickett. none of them fall, maybe it's Matt Corral or Desmond Ridder. I think they'll take this Kevin Colbert's last draft, and he drafted Ben Roethlisberger in 2004, and he wants to draft the next franchise quarterback and basically leave a 40-year legacy. This is how you do it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, what you're talking about, them getting sniped on picks, and that made me think of another one. You mentioned Terrell Edmonds. Wasn't Artie Burns also the fallback because the Bengals took William Jackson like one pick before?
Correct. It's all the picks basically the Steelers had turned out bad. It was just because someone took who they wanted before them. I'll have to tell the 2004 story of how they got Ben Roethlisberger too is a fun story because they probably shouldn't have gotten him either. So.
So we talked about them bringing all these quarterbacks in for top 30 visits, and you said you wanted to kind of break this down because we might have some listeners who don't really understand, I guess, what a top 30 visit is, what teams use it for, and what can you glean off of this when you see these that such and such has visited with the Steelers.
So first, I think the term top 30 visit is for some reason very popular this year. I don't know about you, Brian. Like
you see it a lot on the Twitter.
Has that come out of nowhere? Like I feel like last year and before. Oh, I mean, last year they didn't have these, but before it was not a top 30 visit. Like that wasn't the name, right? It was visits. It was private workouts. Right. So it doesn't mean that like they have this guy in their top 30 of their board or he's going to be a top 30 pick. Right. All it means they get 30 of these visits that they can bring guys to their facility and have a visit. There's a limited number. And so when you hear someone's a top 30 visit, that's what it means. Now, by the time we get to the draft, we usually don't hear or know all of these for each team, right? Teams don't tell people. It's usually agents and players saying it because they want to drum up the interest. Oh, my player is 7 top 30 visits, right? Get other teams scared. So we don't know all of them, but they also can bring in additional players for injury rechecks. So someone like an Andrew Booth from Clemson is a lot of visits. Probably most of them are free. They don't need to use a top 30 because he had surgery, and so they can do an injury recheck. And then teams also get local visits, so local colleges or guys that went to high school in that area, they can have come visit without counting against the top 30.
From what I understand that as well, it's basically think of the TV market for a team. Like, what the old blackout rules were. If a team didn't sell out, it was the game was blacked out within a 75-mile radius of their city. That's essentially what the local pro day is, because like University of Louisville counts as the Bengals' local deal because it's within 75 miles of Cincinnati. So they can bring those guys in for their local pro day, and it doesn't count against their 30 allotted visits.
Right. So, for the Steelers, Kenny Pickett was not a top 30 visit, but it's not any worse. They also this year have virtual visits that, to my knowledge, don't seem limited. And a lot of times some of these players, I'm working on a list and I'll post it on the site at some point of kind of each team and who is visit. Like I might have some virtual ones on there that I'm not sure. So I put the guy on there. I put the local ones on there that I've found, where that happens too. And what you can take away from it, it's not like, oh, they brought this guy in for a visit, they're going to draft him, right? That's not the case. There are certain teams, the Steelers, the Cowboys, who generally draft off their top 30 list. Like they want to meet the player. There's a lot of teams that bring in kind of late round picks, and they're looking at guys more on the third day, and want to bring that in. I mean, I think like the Browns this year have a bunch of players, some that are going to be undrafted that they're bringing in, right? They don't have a pick in the first round. That's what they're doing. Or you have a team like the Rams that haven't had a visit yet. That's been reported, but they're not picking until the end of the third. So I think it's different per team of what this means. But it is what I like to use it for, especially is clusters of positions. What are you looking at? The Falcons have brought in one receiver. They brought in a ton of edge rushers. I don't think they're taking a receiver at 8, right? I think they'd be bringing a ton of receivers and going through that process. The Steelers are bringing all these quarterbacks. They're probably going to take one. The Titans are bringing in a ton of tight ends. They're probably going to take a tight end in the first.
So are the Bengals.
Right. So are the Bengals. So like, I think that's, to me, a little more important. Maybe it's not a guy on that list, but I think positionally you can see where the focus is.
I didn't research this. I'm just basing off this hearsay from a buddy of mine who's a big Saints fan. And he said that Mickey Loomis has never drafted a player that they brought in for a visit.
Interesting. I'm going to try to look that up.
I'm curious. I didn't say he was lying. I don't know, but it sounds, Mickey Loomis is a weird dude. So it doesn't. I didn't completely dismiss it out of immediately, but yeah. If you got a minute, we'll look that up because I'm curious as to how that goes. The Saints do operate differently than any other team in the NFL for sure. One guy who is getting a lot of these visits and such is Cincinnati quarterback Desmond Ridder. He's the hot name here, Shane, in these last few days. A lot of the Desmond Ridder hype. Are you buying him as potentially being? I mean, there are some people saying he could be the first quarterback taken.
I'd be surprised if that happens.
I mean, I will say his draft number his betting number has come down significantly in the last week, but that could just be based off all the talk and everything that's going on that has pushed his number down. But I found it interesting. I mean, Ridder, because Malik Willis didn't test, Ridder's going to test as the most athletic quarterback in this draft class. So, I mean, he's got that going for him, I guess. So I'm just curious. I mean, what your thought on that was, and I'm with you. I don't buy it either, but you did mention today on Twitter that he will be, or in our Discord, the Devy Marketplace Discord, I should say, that you would have him in the first round in your mock draft on Monday.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to go in the first, just that athletic upside with the experience level, with the coaching ability. I think a team's going to take him. I think if there is a quarterback run early, I don't think he'll be the first quarterback off the board. I'll never say never. I think people will know, like, the Falcons probably like him. Well, the Falcons are picking 8. I don't think they're going to take him at 8. Maybe you trade back in. That's the best case scenario. But third quarterback, I think Pickens and Willis still are going to go above him. But I think it might not be far off. I mean, it might only be a couple picks later. I think there's just a lot of upside there. And there's definitely some teams. We talked about Pittsburgh and Carolina and New Orleans that look like they're aiming for a quarterback at some point. That probably means he's taken at some point.
Outside of Willis, I guess you could say Ridder probably does have the most upside of these quarterbacks, because I think Pickett maybe is tapped. I mean, he is what he is, and maybe slightly less so Sam Howell. I don't know. I guess Corral as well, but I guess we'll see with Ridder. Would it upset you with him at 20?
No, I would be happy with it. I think I have some concerns, but just like Pickett or Willis, to me, as long as you bring in Desmond Ridder and you sit him, don't let him start day one. Don't let him start week 1. Like, he needs to sit. He needs to learn how to read a defense better. He needs to learn how to use his footwork to be more accurate. I think there are major issues in his game. There's a reason he's not a top 5 pick, but I would be happy with him in Pittsburgh. Why I feel like you have Mitch Trubisky. I think Desmond Ridder's a very similar quarterback to Mitch Trubisky. Maybe that sounds like a knock because Mitch Trubisky went so high and was kind of a bust. But, I mean, if Desmond Ridder can be what Trubisky was and develop more, like, I think you get a really good player on your hands. So I would be fine with it for Pittsburgh. I think if you're a team like New Orleans or Detroit, once again, where you have that opportunity to sit him, even Atlanta, I mean, put him behind Marcus Mariota. He that's basically run the same offense. You're going to run with Ridder. I think it would work out.
Ridder in round 1. There you have it. So you mentioned a potential trade back with Atlanta, and we touched on this a few weeks ago, and I just wanted to see if maybe anything has changed in your mind as far as some potential, because we had the trade with New Orleans, and that's got me thinking that maybe they still want to move up again. I keep circling back. I think the first 4 spots, I think all 4 of those teams would love to move back in the top 4. I don't think they will. I think our first trade spot is going to be at 5 if we get one in the top 10. And that's with the Giants, with teams wanting to get ahead of Carolina, be it for an offensive tackle, be it for a quarterback. I think that's the spot where teams are going to view they have to get ahead. The team they view they have to get ahead of to get one of those guys. What do you think about that?
I think it's fair for the teams moving up. I just don't know if the Giants will want to move down.
Well, with them having the 7th pick, I thought that maybe they could. It wouldn't hurt them as much.
Right. I think it's a question of what they want to get out of it, right? Do they want Sauce Gardner and an offensive tackle and an edge rusher? You better stick at 5 and 7, right? Like you move down into New Orleans territory, like you ain't getting that. So yeah, I mean that's a good question. I mean, it's a good question because I think the price would be very high still to move up. It almost feels to me like Carolina would be the team to move down to take a quarterback later and get someone to move up for that last offensive tackle or for that last edge rusher. That's just my thought. But, hey, like once again, it could happen. Giants can move down. It could happen.
You could also see that's a very good point, what you just said. So let's hypothetically say the Giants, the tackle run has started. You know Carolina's going to take a tackle if you don't, right? Or you have to think that. So if you take the offensive tackle, then a team maybe even wants to come up for Sauce Gardner.
Right.
And could come up to Carolina at 6. Because I'm with you, because I think Carolina, not only do I think they're going to want to move down, I think they need to just to get some of those Sam Darnold picks back.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's curious.
Exactly.
Is there any other hot spots you think we could see some movement, and for what for?
It's a good question. I almost feel like the back end of the top 10 as well. Like I just think Seattle is a team that has a lot of needs. They're kind of rebuilding. Like, does a pick at 9 really help them where the top offensive tackles are gone, top edge rushers are gone? I mean, what are you looking at? You're looking at Derek Stingley. You're looking at Charles Cross, maybe, who doesn't really fit your offense. Like, it kind of feels like a good spot if you want to move up for a receiver or you want to move up for a corner or maybe Kyle Hamilton sitting there, right? I think you could see 9 be a spot. That would make a lot of sense to me too.
I agree. That you brought up we got a question on Twitter about Charles Cross, so I want to hold that to him. But I just want to throw a quick: does Trevor Penning get drafted ahead of Charles Cross? I don't think he goes ahead of Aquanu or Neal, but could you see Penning as OT3?
I could. I think there are going to be teams that don't have Cross on their board just for scheme fit and really like Trevor Penning, right? So I think if there's a case where, let's say Aquanu and Evan Neal go in the top 5. Let's say Carolina takes a quarterback and Seattle doesn't take an offensive tackle. Like, we can kind of talk about Charles Cross, but I think at that case, you start getting into teams that maybe would consider Trevor Penning. Like I think Baltimore take Trevor Penning over Charles Cross, right? So I think there are teams that would do that. I think there's a 50-50 shot. I would say it's still more likely, 75% more likely Cross goes first, but I think there's 25-ish% chance that Penning goes first.
Speaking of, just so I don't feel like I'm insane anymore, I mocked Evan Neal 1 in our draft last week. I did it this week in my 7-round mock. He now has a higher percentage on mock draft database as number one than Hutchinson does. It's close. It's like 37.5 to 35%. It's close.
They're all Brian Mox.
No. Josh Edwards, who we had on the podcast a couple weeks ago, CBS, and his last mock also had Evan Neal going one.
Okay, yeah,
to Jacksonville.
All right.
So I am not crazy. All right, Shane, we're not going to have our marathon episode tonight. You've got some other stuff to take care of tonight, and let's be honest, we are light on the content this evening. So we will not be light on the content these next couple of weeks, though.
Yeah.
But so let's get to some Twitter questions. We don't have any in the chat. No, we do not. So let's go to the Twitter question here. And at ShinyDH, David Howell asked, I've seen Charles Cross fall to 11. I've seen him talked up as a top 5 pick. Do you have any idea if he is going to fall, and could he move to right tackle if the place he indeed falls to is the Chargers?
Yeah, David's a good follower. We have some good conversations. I think it's one of the biggest struggles that I'll have in my next mock draft, because I almost feel like he either goes 6 to Carolina or falls pretty darn far. Like, I mean, I don't think 17 to the Chargers is off as maybe the floor for him to fall to. I just think he's such a good, pass protector. Like I said before, I think teams like Baltimore, Seattle aren't going to have him rated as highly. The Jets, maybe the Jets will as an inside zone blocker, but they have other needs. So, man, it's tough because I think it could go either way. I personally think he's good enough. He should go top 10. And I feel like he will, but I feel like I'm not going to have the spot correct, and that's gonna make me sad on draft night. But yeah.
What about the question of can he play right tackle if he lands with the Chargers? Are you okay with that playing opposite with Rashawn Slater at left tackle?
Yeah, I think it'd be great. Like, I think he could do it. It's a little bit of a transition, but I mean, that would be awesome for Justin Herbert. So I'd be in. I think him
better than Storm Norton.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he could fit there very well. Yes.
All right, good deal. At Godfather League, ask. I'm assuming this is one of your another one of your fantasy peeps here, Shane.
Yeah.
Wants to get some draft ranges here for 4 different players. Let's start with Jermaine Johnson, the edge rusher from Florida State.
I think and feel free to disagree. I think his ceiling is 4 overall. I think his floor is probably lower than I think. Man, I just really think he's going to go pretty early. I'd say his floor maybe is like 22. Yeah, I think the Packers would jump on him. I mean, that feels. I don't think he's going to fall that far.
I feel like I had him falling further in my last mock than he will. I would have to go back and look, but I think his ceiling is like where you said at 4, and that's if, say, the Jets or whoever have him like maybe higher than Thibodeau.
I mean, or we could go. It could be edge, 4 edges in a row.
Wow.
I mean,
that would be something to see.
Like, it could happen, right? Could it go Hutchinson, Thibodeau, Trayvon Walker, Jermaine Johnson? I don't think that's a 0% chance.
That would be interesting to see for sure. I think his floor is 15. Philadelphia's first pick.
No, that probably is a good call. I think they.
All right, next spot here. This one's going to be wide. We're gonna cast the net wide here. Andrew Booth, corner, Clemson.
Yeah, it is wide because he had sports hernia surgery, so there's a lot of talk of him falling out of the first round. But I think a lot of teams need corners. I think the ceiling is 12, Minnesota. Don't think he goes higher than that. I think the floor is. I think the floor is,
I think it's the
Jets'
second round pick.
I'll say pick 100. I mean, Right? Because I mean, is this a medical issue? So when there's a medical, I'm going to add a round because it happens. What if that surgery went poorly?
No, that's fair. You're right.
You know what I mean?
You're absolutely right. Well, and if he's falling, he's going to be the guy we're talking about during night 2 of our draft coverage. Okay, this has got to be from the surgery.
Right.
I think if all systems go on the medicals, I think his floor is it 34, the Jets' second round pick?
35.
35.
Yeah, 35 and 38 they have.
35. I'll say 35 is his floor there because I know that's a big need for the Jets. And if they don't get Sauce Gardner or Stingley at pick 4 or 10, I think, if Booth were still be on the board there, I think that'd be a good spot for them. All right, here's another one. We're about to cast that net wide.
Yeah.
David Ojabo.
Man, that's a tough one. Godfather League bringing it. I'm going to say his ceiling is, I'll say 15 to Philly. I don't think he'd go. I mean, I think 15's rich, but like maybe there's a shot that a team takes him 15 through 20. Once again, it's a medical issue. Like I feel like the sweet spot's early second round, 36 to the Giants if everything's good. But I would say, 80, maybe 7, maybe 78 is like the floor for him.
So we're talking Achilles with Ojabo. So we're looking at best case scenario 6 months, which is ridiculous. Was what Cam Akers came back from, and now all of a sudden everybody thinks that's the standard.
Yeah, right.
It's not the standard. I mean, you're looking at a 9 to 12 month recovery for Ojabo. So at no point do I expect him to play this season. I think for me, I like what you said with Philadelphia at 15, although I would say 19 would be, or 18, 18 would be his ceiling. Absolute. I think you're a team that's well stocked with draft picks, both now and in the future, I think, who can absorb a red shirt on a guy. I think Kansas City with either pick 29 or 30 is where I would start to Kansas City's 2 second round picks that they have. They have 2 second round picks, right? I didn't imagine that. Or did I? I just did a 7 round mock draft and I can't even remember. But anyway, or to Kansas City in the second round with their second round pick, I think is a spot there.
That's fair.
Last range here, George Pickens, wide receiver, Georgia. I think you probably got a good handle on this one, though.
Do I?
Maybe.
So I'm going to say ceiling's 22. I think the Packers – I'm probably going to have them to the Packers in my final mock, probably above, like, Traylon Burks or something. That won't happen, but I feel like the Packers are going to draft him, man. And I think floor – I mean, once again, I think like early 40s is a sweet spot of where it'd be good for him to go. I will say, I'll just go back. I'll say 59 to the Packers in the second round, but I do think he goes early second.
I will say I'm with you. 100% agree. Ceiling is 22 to Green Bay. Floor, I think, is I want to say it's 42. Is that Indianapolis?
42 is the Colts, yeah.
I'll say that 22 to 42 for George Pickens.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I mean, I could see it. Like, I think that is a nice spot. The Bears could take him at 39.
Yeah.
There's some good spots there. Yeah. Good question. Two good questions. Yeah.
Very good question. And that we had to think, Shane. That's asking way too much for us here.
I like it. All
right. So that's I forgot to change the banner, but we were answering Twitter and chat questions there, folks. Final thoughts, Shane. We're gonna, like I said, we're gonna close her out early tonight. You've been putting a lot of notes there, a lot of quibs about a lot of prospects, especially those wide receivers the other day. That was a lot. You've had tight ends up. I think you got offensive linemen, I should say, coming up tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. I think that's up over 200 offensive linemen tomorrow. And yeah, I'm just working through my notes and putting down a couple things. And as I, get later, it's less and less. But um, I think it's good if you want to look up a player or you sign undrafted free agent. If I've watched them, they'll be up there. And also during the draft, we'll have our live stream. You should be watching during all 3 days of the draft. But I'll probably be taking those and tweeting those out as well as teams pick players. So it's kind of a good exercise. I'm not in the defensive backs. I'm a little scared. I think we got up over 200 defensive backs. So I'm getting there, but that one's going to take some time.
Yeah. I wrapped up our pro day piece yesterday, or sorry, that came out this morning, I should say, over at the site. Friday, Shane, I'm going to give everybody a list of my guys. You probably heard me talk about them a lot on this podcast. So yeah, I'm probably gonna go with 5. My 5 favorite guys. Maybe not the 5 best players. It's not going to be the 5 players that I think are the best prospects in this draft class. These are 5 guys that I just thoroughly enjoyed watching throughout this process, and guys that I'll be pulling for to be drafted as high as possible when we come up. But Shane, that's going to do it for tonight's episode. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit that, and you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you get notified when we go live, especially like Shane said, April 28th, 29th, and 30th. We are live. Pick to pick, gavel to gavel coverage of the 2022 NFL draft right here on youtube.com/The Draft Countdown. So you're definitely going to want to subscribe and be notified when those videos go live. If you're listening to us audio, leave us a good 5-star review. Tweet out links to it or whatever, or share it on your social media. Get the buzz out about the Draft Countdown podcast. We want everybody to hear it as we are in peak draft season, as we said. You can follow me on Twitter at Deep Fried Draft. Follow Shane on Twitter at Shane P. Hallam. Follow Draft Countdown on Twitter at Draft Countdown. DraftCountdown.com for daily coverage of the NFL draft. For Shane, I'm Brian. Good night, everybody.